Okay, so before we get to the program for today or the main part of this lesson, just a quick review of while and for loops. So we have two different types and why. Like when do we use one, when do we use the other? Pause the video, answer the question. Okay, so the difference is you use a for loop. Use a for loop when we know the number of times we will loop. Right, so if it's like a known amount, like you're going to loop 10 times or loop through all the students in a class, that's like a fixed number. And so that's when you would use a for loop. And you're going to use a while loop when the number of loops is unknown, right? And that will usually happen, like the best one again is like while the player chooses to continue to shop at the shop in the game, or while the login is incorrect, you keep asking them to log in. So, a user might mess up their login 57 times. So a while loop, we don't know how many times it's going to run. In general, you're going to use for loops much more common than the while loop, at least from my experience programming. All right, so in this video lesson, we're going to make one program, and we're going to do one that removes the vowels from a sentence or a word. So like we have baseball and becomes, and then Paris is my hero. You can see what that becomes. So I think this is a really good algorithm, another real good example of a loop. All right, so as always, if you feel like you can do this, just do it. Make a program in Eclipse or whatever editor and do it. If you need a little bit of help, watch the start of the video, then pause it, see if you can complete the rest of the program. The main point again is you have to be doing this. If you just watch me do this in this video, that is not going to be that valuable, right? I know it's harder to think it out and try and make it work on your own, but that's really the valuable part of it, is like messing around with it. Even if you can't get it right, the thinking through it and muddling your way through it, that is what's going to make you smarter and going to make you a better programmer. So that being said, I'll start with my explanation here. And again, if you feel like you can do it, just pause the video whenever you feel comfortable. All right, so much like a couple of previous programs we've done, we're going to loop through the letters one at a time using substring. All right, and so basically to get the P, we would do 0 to 1. So P is going to be substring of 0 to 1. Sorry for the poor handwriting there. And then when we get the A, that would be substring from 1 to 2. When we get the U, it's going to be substring from 2 to 3, dot, 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 until the last letter, in this case S, would be substring, and then in this case 5 to 6. Okay, and so the trick is I want to do this with substring of I and I plus 1. And then run up to, let's see, I would go up to length minus 1, because the last letter is 5 to 6, and we have a length of 6. So my I value is going to go from 0 to length minus 1. Okay, and so this is kind of tricky about like how do you actually do this. So basically the algorithm is I'm going to make a new string called like output or something, and it's going to start off as nothing. It's going to start off as a blank string, and then basically if we hit a non-vowel, we add it. So we're going to loop through the letters, which we've already set up, and then if it's not a vowel, we're going to add it to output. So when we hit the B, that's not a vowel, so it gets added. Then we hit A and it just skips over that. Next we hit S, so it's going to append that to the end of the string, right? And then skips over E. Now we hit this B, and then again it's just going to append it. So we already have B and S, and so now we're just going to add another B to the end of it. Okay, and we're going to keep going through all the letters like that, and that'll create this little baseball string or whatever. So you loop through one at a time, and if it's not a vowel, add it to the string. Okay. So let's get rocking. So here's how I would set it up. Right, we just have an input string. I just took a quote that I happen to like, and then I left this in here, I guess, but that's going to be my answer, my output string. Okay, so again, if you feel ready, pause it at this point, but otherwise you can keep watching. So anyways, the output string starts off with nothing in it. So it just starts off as blank string. Okay, and then we loop through letter by letter and only add it to the output string if it's not a vowel. So I'm going to do my for loop starting at 0, and then I we talked about is going to go less than the length. And you could do less than or equal to length minus 1. I guess that's kind of how I set it up in here. I set it to length minus 1, but I'm basically going to go less than length, which would be the same thing as being equal to length minus 1. Plus 1 to I. Okay, and I'm going to get the letter, the ith letter. So I'm going to do my input string, substring from I to I plus 1, as we talked about before. And now we basically want to do if it's not a vowel, right? I'm going to leave that kind of written goofy for now, but if it's not a vowel, I'm going to add it to my output string. So I'm going to do plus equals the letter. So it basically just appends it to the end of the output string. That's what the plus equal does. If you want to write it in the full hand, it's output string equals whatever it used to be plus the letter. But the plus equals is kind of a cleaner, easier way. But if you want to see it in the full version, there it is. All right, so now we just basically need to write an if that it's not a vowel. If I was programming this later in the class, I would definitely do a method here, right? Like a is vowel method, which basically is just a little piece of code that does a check to see if it's a vowel or not. Right, but since we haven't learned methods yet, I'll have to do a big if check here. So basically, to be a vowel, it would look like this. All right, so this would be my check that says if it's an A or an E or an I or an O or U, then it is a vowel, right? But we want to do actually the reverse of that. We want to do if it's not a vowel. So this ends up being a really good example of where we could use De Morgan, because I basically have to do not all of this. And so if you remember De Morgan, what it would work is we would distribute the not and then change it to or and. So this says to be a vowel, we're not A or not E. So to be a vowel, sorry, we are A, E, I, O, or U. But the opposite of that would be we are not equal to A, and we are not equal to E, and we're not equal to I, and we're not equal to O and U. So De Morgan, we're just going to distribute the not, change these to ands, and then add a not, right? So we have to add the not. It's distributed to all the parts, and we change it from or to and. Okay, and that's actually De Morgan, right? And so we can see if that makes sense. So this, we want it to say not a vowel. So for not A and not E and not I and not O and not U, then we are a vowel. Sorry, then we are not a vowel. All right, and then that's what we want. So basically it says if we're not one of these vowels, then add it to our output string. And then once we're done with this loop, then it'll print it out. So we can see if it'll work for this string here. And it looks like it does take them out, right? And if we're not sure, we could add in another string here, but I'm feeling pretty confident. So try your own string or whatever and see if you can get this running and working. Yeah, so in this case, we removed all the vowels from a string. Thank you for watching.